Hello everybody, welcome back to another vlog of Better Late Than Ever, and boy am I excited to be sharing this information with you today. What we're going to be going over is I'm going to be sharing on information on what to look for when it comes to buying your big wave equipment, ranging from your boards to leashes all the way to flotation. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and let's get started. The first leash I'm going to be talking about, it's one of my favorites, and this is the XM. This is their version of their Big Wave Leash. This is something particular that I'd be using in double overhead. This is a urethane base material, so the diameter on this is roughly around 9 millimeters. So one thing that I like about this leash is the recoil on the pull isn't going to be as strong versus something that's more polyurethane based, because this is the urethane is somewhat of a plastic base, so that pullback isn't going to be as strong. And if you're in a bad situation, you do have the pull pin, and the retail on this is pretty much something around under $100. This would be my go-to. It's one of my favorite leashes that I like to use within the sizes roughly around double overhead. And so there you go. All right, the next two leashes that I'm going to be talking about are hands down, I think, the best big wave leashes in the industry right now, and the leashes are made by Stay Covered. Stay Covered is a company that is based out of Carlsbad, California, and what makes these leashes so unique is that they're both handmade and hand-tied. They actually provide and give you a 10 millimeter polyurethane cord, a 10 millimeter nickel swivel with a triple Velcro rail saver. These are both very similar in a way. The only difference is the ankle cufflets are a little bit different. You have your basic ankle cufflet, and then with this ankle cufflet, you're going to be having the pull cord. Now, these are both handmade. They're both they both offer a lot of durability when it comes to surfing waves over in that triple overhead range. And one thing that you have to think about with these leashes being made with polyurethane, I know earlier I mentioned and went over with the urethane and polyurethane, and why you want to have a polyurethane leash when you're surfing waves within that triple overhead range is you have to think about these waves that are moving super fast with a lot of energy, and with polyurethane, they're going to give you a lot more durability and a lot more flexibility when it comes to the recoil and the pulling from whether you're eating crap or you're ditching your board or whatever. Like, it's going to withstand that, and polyurethane is going to give you that flexibility compared to something that is more urethane based, that's basically plastic. So you're looking at something that's more plastic to something that has more rubber, and the polyurethane is going to give you that. And that's why I think these leashes are hands down the best. They have been proven, and they have worked with pretty much all the best big wave surfers, ranging from Garrett McNamara to Jamie Mitchell. The list goes on. And even myself, I use these, and hands down my favorite. When it comes to the price point, their original big wave leash, I believe, retails, depending on the length, around $100. And then their newest version one, which has the pull cord, this one retails, I want to say, roughly starting, depending on the length, I believe is roughly around the $120 range. They're both great leashes. You can't go wrong with them. Hands down, the best leash made within that triple overhead range. And so that's why I recommend these. Next, I'm going to be talking about our board selection and what to look for. So thank you so much, and see you guys soon. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is something that we're all passionate about, and that's boards. What is the difference between a step up and a minigun? And to be quite honest, there's really no difference. And I think sometimes we get a lot of that confused, and I think a minigun should just be kind of on its own different trip. And what I mean by that is because the minigun is basically the intro to your gun. A step up is basically taking your step further to what you're currently riding. And one thing is I just want to add words of encouragement, is to really try not to go by what other surfers are using. There's nothing wrong with conversating and maybe taking certain things of what they've done and maybe tweak it to what maybe might work for you, because all of us, we all have different riding styles. And what really put that into perspective for me is when I was comparing the Florence brothers from Nathan to John. Even though one, they're both similar in height and weight, they both surf both the same waves. And John, for instance, uses boards with less volume compared to Nathan, and Nathan uses boards that have more volume. So that put a lot into perspective. Even though they're both almost equal when it comes to height and weight, they both surf the same wave. However, they just have different preferences. They have different things that they like. And I think that's what's best on how you should judge whenever you're ordering or making an order for your board. What I always do as a rule of thumb is my average quiver ranges from 5'10" up to 6'4", and my leaders start from 32 going up to 34. Now, when I'm going into my step-up game starts at 6'6" and goes all the way up to 7'0", and I'm riding a board starting at 35 to maybe 37 at max. I know that within at least 35 liters that I have a lot of buoyancy and I'm gonna have a lot of paddle power. And sometimes I think even going to that 37 liters is just a little too much. That's a lot of board and that's a lot of buoyancy, and I don't want that, because I know if I'm going to be surfing waves that are within that double overhead range, that I'm going to be having a lot of power and a lot of energy pushing me that will basically get me into what I need. Having that much volume between 35 to 37 liters is more than enough, and that's going to be giving me a lot of paddle power. So I think you should kind of use that as a rule of thumb to what you're already using for yourself. So whatever volume that you're currently comfortable with, whatever it is, just take that by a couple more liters, and I guarantee you'll see a difference. And just, really mess with what you know and what you're comfortable with. And that's what I've been doing over the years, and I've been finding that to work out best. I really try not to compare myself to anybody else, because I'm me and I surf a certain way compared to somebody else. However, yes, do I take things into consideration of what they're putting out? Absolutely, because I think everything is all about knowledge, right? And so when you're hearing what other people are doing, it kind of puts things into relatability to what I'm doing and where I'm going and that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm sharing this with you, is basically to share a different perspective and giving you different things to really think about when you're buying your board, especially when it comes into when you're surfing bigger waves. And so that's what I've been doing, and that's how basically I think is best. So the next segment that we're going to be talking about is that we're going to be talking about the actual going from the minigun to the guns. And I think that is going to be a great talking point, because who doesn't like talking about bigger boards? So thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is the gun. Now, I know earlier we were talking about the miniguns and everything, and I truly believe that 7 is a really odd number to even consider to be in a gun territory. I really think the 7s should stay within that step-up range. Basically anything below a 7.5. I think after that you could kind of start going into the guns. Yes, I understand that height and weight all matter. Now, I'm speaking on behalf of people or guys that are, within that 6 foot range, weighing between 170 on up. Now, this board right here that I'm particularly talking about, this is an 8.6 Padillac. I am a huge fan of the Padillac. I really think that John Pyzel has really done an amazing job on the craftsmanship when it comes to the Padillac. And especially who you're like when you really start seeing who's been behind the Padillac. I mean, we're seeing guys from Mark Healy, Billy Kemper, the Rothman brothers, and the Florence brothers, plus the list goes on with other big wave pioneers that have used this board. And one thing that truly I love about this board too is that it really kind of sticks to the true craftsmanship when it comes to a big wave board. These big wave boards have a beak nose. It has a lot of paddle power, a lot of volume in it. And that being said, I think a true gun really starts at the size of 8.6 on up. I particularly have started from 8.6 and I go up to about 10.4. I've used an 8.6 and a 9.6 in both good conditions, on heavy conditions as well. I've taken this particular board with me to Zicatella, Waimea, and Sunset. The other Pyzel Padillac that I have is a 9.6, and I've taken that with me on just a recent strike mission and surfed an outer reef spot out in past Haleiwa, and then I used that over at Waimea as well at Sunset. And the 10.4 is going to be coming soon. However, that being said, I really think that a good rule of thumb and a good gun range is basically 8.6 on up. I think when you're going into the 7s for a gun, I just think that is just kind of pointless in a way. I think that should be more within that step up territory. And so that being said, the next thing that I want to be sharing with you too is our tow boards. I think tow boards play a huge role into kind of knowing a little bit. I've done some research over the years and really finding out who makes the best boards and what works best. And so I really hope what I've been sharing with you guys is starting to kind of somewhat make sense. Please share your thoughts, your comments, what you've been using, if I make any sense at all. But you know, a lot of this I'm just sharing is just from my own knowledge and just what I think and what I've learned over time. So thank you for allowing me to share, and we'll be talking about the tow-ins. All right, now on to our tow boards. First off, I just want to say that if you're on the market for looking for a tow board, good luck. It is super hard to find a shaper out there that is local, that, you know, sells them. It's very rare. However, you have to do everything custom wise. There's only, at the top of my head, that I know that shape, that's either Jeff Clark or Stretch. Those two are phenomenal shapers. I did a lot of research on them and what they offer and what they do. However, trying to find one and trying to get it in the time that I needed was just, I didn't have time. And so overall, one of the best shapers that's out there by the name of Dylan Longbottom. I am a huge fan of his tow boards. He was actually the original shapers that I was looking into when it came to buying a tow board. The whole purpose of why I'm about Dylan Longbottom is he's just a phenomenal shaper, but he is continuously active in towing in, which I'm not saying that Jeff Clark isn't. However, Dylan Longbottom is consistently, you know, on the go, doing tweaking, doing that sort of thing. And so for me, that spoke more into the essence of what I was looking for. And luckily I came across his board. You know, a good friend of mine by the name of Mark Pesh, who is a shaper and works over at Huntington Surf and Sport. He knew that I was in the market to buy a tow board, and right when he told me, I bought it. Roughly, one thing about tow boards is that they're super expensive. You're going to be looking to be spending at least a minimum of $1,200 for a tow board, and to find one in the States is very slim. However, one thing I have to say about Dylan Longbottom's particular shape is I've had the privilege to tow in on the biggest so far on this thing is roughly around 25 foot, which I know it's not that big. And the whole purpose is obviously when you have equipment, you want to train on it, you want to get comfortable with it, you want to get acclimated to where when it's time to go, you are comfortable, you know how it works. And one thing I have to say about this board is that it draws great lines, it holds the speed. This is a particular 511. I don't think you should go anything bigger than a 6.0, and don't go anything lower than a 510. And roughly, like I said, I'm speaking on someone that's within 6 foot in height or higher. Obviously, if you're a little bit taller, yeah, you can go a little bit longer, but you just have to think about how fast you're moving, what you're pulling, because when you're towing, you're moving at least a minimum between 30 to 40 miles an hour. That doesn't even include the wave speed. So for you to have a longer board is just, I think you're doing more of a disservice to yourself, and going too small could really hinder your performance as well. I actually have a few things where I could add some weight and take off. It's just tape base. And I'm really not one to say that I like weight, because I think sometimes when you're dealing with weight, it could really slow you down, and you don't want that. I want to be as fast as I can, and making sure that I'm not bogging down by any means. So that's overall so far within my experience. I'm still relatively new into the towing world. I've only been doing it for a couple seasons. This is actually my 3rd season, so I'm still learning. But what to look for is do some research on who you feel fits best for what you want and where you can get one. And overall, try and work with a friend that might have one, so you have an understanding, and maybe tweak theirs, because that's what I did. My friend by the name of Matt Miliak, he's the one that usually does all the water safety and all the towing in for me. He's also a big tow surfer too, so I was able to use his board, which was, I think he had a 6.0, which I felt was a little too long. And so I went a little bit shorter with a 5.11, not by much, but so far I felt the difference on how both of those boards performed. This thing was perfect. It like I said, it drew really good lines. It was super fast and it held the edge perfectly. The only thing that I have to say, which it's probably based upon the fins that I was using, which I used the Future Padillac fins from Pyzel. They worked great. However, I noticed that when I put it on rail too much, I freaking slid out just a little bit. So I think maybe that could have been, could have handled a little bit different if I would have used a different type of pair of fins. But so far with those fins, it worked really good. It performed great. And so I hope some of this information is valuable to you. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about flotation. Now on to our part of flotation, preventative to help you if you're in a bad situation, and really understanding your limits and knowing yourself. Do not put yourself in danger, because if you're putting yourself in danger, you're putting those around you in danger. And everyone is all about community and they're helping one another. But if you're being dumb and not really understanding of what you're putting yourself into, then you shouldn't be out there in the first place. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be moving on over to the Patagonia PSI vest. Now, one thing about this Patagonia PSI vest is this is something that you just can't buy. This is something that you just can't get. And I'm a true believer of that, because I believe when you're working at, or when you're going and you're working into something that takes a lot of life, or that could basically take your life and there's a lot of risk, I really think that there's some training that needs to be involved. And that is one great thing about what Patagonia does and how they've teamed up with an organization called BWRAG, which is the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group. And in order to get this vest, you actually have to go through that course. And I think any ocean goer should actually take this class, because it really puts a lot of stuff into perspective when it comes to ocean safety and overall just risk assessment. And me, as being a world traveler and surfing some of the best waves and some of the biggest waves in the world, I truly believe that that is something that we all need, and I'm glad that I got that, because I think that is the foundation of everything, of knowing and understanding. And on top of that, it is taught by the best lifeguards, the best water safety teams, and on top of that, you're working with some of the best big wave surfers in the world. So I know that there's other companies out there that do make PSI vests, but I think any company now should actually put people through some sort of safety course before they actually can get that, because I think water safety is just a huge thing, and just really understanding your limits and knowing what you're putting yourself into and also putting those around you into. And so just really take that into consideration, because I think it's super important that water safety is key. And so in that being said, I'm a huge believer of Patagonia's message and the products that they make. And these two suits, or actually I should say three, because I also have the just the regular vest. Patagonia has a great message. All their quality and everything that they do is literally, they have science behind everything, and that is one thing that is super important to me. And you know, with these impact suits and this vest, you can get on Patagonia, so you don't need any sort of licensing or anything like that. They're all pretty affordable. I believe this vest retails around, I want to say, a little over $100, and then the short john is roughly around $170, and their short sleeve spring is $250. Obviously, different things might change due to taxes and all that, but you can actually wear the short john under your full suit, because this is only, I believe it's 1.5 mil for the material, so it's super thin and very flexible. I actually wear this under my wetsuit until I'm actually waiting for another company that it does make impact suits, and that's Moon Suits, which is by Joel Tudor. And so those retail roughly around, I want to say, starting out at $1,100. And so those are the only companies that I know so far, besides Buell, that make impact suits. So overall, my whole entire message about when we're talking about the flotation is really do your homework, really understand the risk that you're going to be putting yourself into, do the proper training, and I think overall you'll be okay. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, and to watch more videos, go ahead and click this link. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for allowing me to share. Take care, have a Merry Christmas, and see you soon.